I like to say that my career chose me. I didn't choose my career. LaVille is my home. LaVille is where I want to end my career. I started my education here, and then I had some twists and turns in the middle, and this is where I wanted to end. My name is Jill Doyle, and I am a kindergarten teacher here at LaVille Elementary. Well, LaVille is probably my most favorite place on earth. This is where I graduated from, and this is where my family's from. My husband is from this area. Interestingly enough, I've always wanted to work here, and I never really had the opportunity. My husband and I have been in different locations for different jobs that we've had, and we were able to come back to LaVille just recently. LaVille is important to me because it's my community. I really believe in the people here. I love the small size that we are. When I was a student, I was able to participate in a lot of things, academics, sports, the arts, and growing up that was normal to me. I thought everybody got that chance. And then when I left LaVille and went to college and started making friends outside of this area, I realized a lot of kids didn't have that opportunity because their schools were so large, or maybe necessarily smaller, that they didn't have the actual programs. So I was involved in so many things, and I loved it. Being in high school and elementary I looked forward to it almost every single day. So for me, it's really important to give back. I just benefited so much from going to LaVille and being a LaVille graduate that now that I'm here, I really want to be a part of giving that to future generations, because I was so blessed by it that I feel it's my job, and it's also something I want to do to make these kids have just a great experience as I did. When I was a student at LaVille, my involvement in extracurriculars started really early in the elementary. I was in the spring musicals, and I was able to do Circle the State with Song. I also was introduced to wrestling in 5th and 6th grade, and I really loved keeping score for that, and that's something that I did through my senior year. And I just enjoyed it so much. So I learned a lot about the sport, but I also took score, so they recognized me as part of that team. I played softball. I was in madrigals. I was in drama club. I was in student government. I was in the student conservation club. I played track. And I was in FCA, so there were a lot of different things that I got to do. My arrival at elementary education is actually pretty interesting. I like to say that my career chose me. I didn't choose my career. My freshman year, I went to Anderson University, and then I transferred my sophomore year to Indiana Wesleyan University. And both of those universities are a little bit smaller. I was a little scared to go to a place like Indiana University. Looking back, I think I would have been fine. But I went to 2 of those smaller schools, and I found that some of that prerequisite classes that I had to take, like speech, everything they taught me, my teacher, Mr. Reed, I'd gone through that class, and I even used some of my stuff in high school, from high school, and it was great. So then transferring, I was ready for college. I did really well in college. I did a little bit better in college than even high school, but I think a lot of that was I felt confident. I know a lot of students kind of felt they struggled a little bit, like they weren't quite prepared, where I felt nothing was really that much harder. I could tell that I was building on what I had learned. A good point is in chemistry. I had taken chemistry in high school, which was a little bit of a challenge for me, I'm not gonna lie. But then I ended up having to take it in college because it was the only thing available, and I had to finish up a science credit. And thankfully, that was my senior year of college, but I had taken it my junior year in high school. But I remembered some of the exact things at the beginning that my teacher in high school had taught me. So thankfully, I passed really well, and it started with a foundation that started here at LaVille. I actually wanted, my freshman year in college, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. And I went to Anderson University for communications. I wanted to be a radio DJ. I wanted to, you know, be out there. I thought that that's what I wanted. And so I started taking some of those classes, and I actually had like a radio stint on the college's local radio station. And I loved it, but I didn't feel like it was necessarily as exciting as I thought it was going to be, or just maybe I was losing interest. And so I transferred my sophomore year. That summer, I was working as a summer camp counselor, which I had done for quite a few summers previously. And the Indiana Wesleyan called my home and asked to speak to me. And my mom said, well, she's not here. You know, how can I help you? And they said, well, she's going to be a sophomore. She really needs to pick a major. And my mom said, you know what, just put down elementary ed. And they said, are you sure? Yeah, it's good. And so I came home that weekend, and Mom said, you know, Indiana Wesleyan called. They need you to pick a major. So I picked elementary ed for you. And my first reaction was, you know, you just picked my major? And then immediately after that, I thought, okay, let's try it, because I really hadn't decided yet. And, you know, I had worked with youth a lot through summer camp counseling, and I had helped with lots of things through my church, and even at LaVille, I'd worked with some of the younger kids. And so I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And sophomore year, I began my education in that, and I never looked back. My husband and I graduated in 2005. And we got married right after we graduated. We moved up to Kalamazoo, Michigan for him to continue his education and get his master's degree at Western Michigan. At that time, there was not a teacher shortage, and it was a really hard time to get a job anywhere. So I applied to so many places, and I found myself as the director of a daycare. It was not where I wanted to be. I wanted to go right into that classroom. The year after, I worked at a high school, and I was the in-school suspension supervisor. So I went from doing, you know, kids that were birthed to 5 years old to high schoolers who got kicked out or were caught in the parking lot with things they shouldn't have had. So it was a really big jump. And at the time, it was really frustrating because I just wanted to be, you know, I wanted 4th, 5th grade. And it was hard. My husband was working, he was a full-time student. We both, you know, we were trying to make ends meet, newly married, all the things were thrown at us. And towards the end of his last year with his master's program, a place in South Bend called him and said, hey, we'd like you to apply. And we were very excited because that's where we wanted to eventually come back. And so I said, you know, I'm going to start applying to schools down there, and LaVille was my top choice. So they didn't have a position for me, but they took my application, and I came in and I interviewed with my old principal, John Farthing. It was good, but they said, hey, we'll let you know, we don't have anything. So a couple weeks later, the organization that my husband had applied to wanted to give him the job. However, he hadn't graduated yet, so they said, we can't hire you. They hired someone else. So during that time, we were thinking, what are we going to do? And a job opened up at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion, Indiana. And so my husband applied, and he got the job. I still hadn't heard from LaVille, so we moved to Marion. And in August, right after my husband started his job, and about 2 days before I was getting ready to start a job at Mississinawa Community Schools, LaVille called me, and they said, we have a kindergarten job for you. And the next day, that organization in South Bend called my husband and said, we fired the guy that we hired in place of you. We'd like you back. And my husband and I just kind of looked at each other and we thought, what do we do? You know, we just started renting this house. We just finally got these jobs that actually were in our field that we'd worked so hard for. And we were very doubtful, and we had a lot of fear of just dropping everything and running back. So we said, no, we made this commitment, we've got hired, we stay here. So we started a 17-year journey that started us out in Marion, and you know, the job at Indiana Wesleyan was good for my husband. I began my teaching career at Mississinawa Community Schools, and it was a great place to be. And then eventually we moved down to Indianapolis. That we did not like that at all. My husband said, you know, this new job I really don't like. I said, quit, just quit. It's not worth it. I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. I had stopped teaching. I'd had 2 sons, and so I went back to teaching at another school corporation. And I had applied. I said, you need to quit your job. I'll go back to work. So I applied back up here to LaVille. I applied all over the place. And the school corporation right next to Mrs. Sinawa called me back. And so we moved back to where we had originally moved away from, just a different school corporation. And that was in 2018. So we were kind of at a point in our lives where, man, did we just mess up? Like, if we just made bad move after bad move after bad move, and things were still just not very satisfying for either of us career-wise. And in the summer of 2020, Indiana University South Bend called Andrew and said, hey, we'd like you to come up here. And he took it and jumped, and we said, we'll figure it out. And a week later, the principal that was here at the time called me and said, we got a kindergarten spot for you. And I didn't even hesitate. I said, yep. Yeah, so after 17 years, we finally had our chances to come home. And so we took it. And it was crazy. I worked Friday at Marion Community Schools, and on Monday, I started here. So I had a weekend to transition. But I'm so glad we did it. I'm 100% satisfied with our decision. Yeah. During that time we were away, it was always in the back of our minds, what if we would have said yes? What if we would have dropped everything in Marion and came back? I think the timing, although it was hard and frustrating, I think it was perfect. It allowed my husband Andrew and I a chance to learn how to be married, learn how to become professionals without interference of family, not that it, good and bad, and also just having to start new, having to start in a brand new place, making new friends. And we did that, and we did that really well. We made a really good community for ourselves, but always in the back of our minds, like when we would come up for holidays, you had to pack the van, you had to drive a long distance, and then as our boys became older, they were having fun with their cousins, and it'd be like, well, it's time to go, we have to leave, and they never wanted to leave. And it was interesting because my oldest son, Mac, would always say as we were driving back to Marion, why can't we just live here? Why can't we just be here? And Andrew and I would look at each other and be like, we'd love to, but there's no opportunities up here. And there weren't for the longest time. So yeah, it was always kind of a nagging thing. Like, if the opportunity presented itself, we would go for it. But during that time, there were no opportunities. Right now, I'm in kindergarten, and I'm very content with that. When I first started teaching, I think because I was inexperienced, I thought there was one grade where I would fit, and that would be kind of it. And I did love. I actually started my first year was a first grade teacher, and that was fine. But then they bumped me up to 4th grade, and that's where I really wanted. That was my 4th grade year here at LaVille was my favorite school year. And so I had made it, and then they bumped me to 5th grade. And I wasn't very happy about that move. But then after that first year, I thought, I really actually like this a lot, and that's kind of where I stayed. So then in my mind, I thought 5th grade is where I'm meant to be. I am a 5th grade teacher, and kind of identified as that. And I would say things like, I'd never go to kindergarten. I'll never teach kindergarten. I don't want. And I'm really good at saying never to a lot of things, just like I'd never have a minivan. I'll never live in Marion. I have a book full of things I said I'd never do, and they all came true. So, no, I have found as I've gotten older, I really like all the ages, and I like high school. I love junior high. I haven't had a lot of academic experience with high schoolers, but that position I had as an in-school suspension supervisor, I found myself making relationships with even those kids and trying to get them to strive for something better for themselves. And I just didn't see that part of me when I was younger, probably because I was kind of close to their age even at that time in my life. But yeah, now I feel like I've been able to craft my skill as just an educator. And now I realize I can apply that to really any spot. I do love kindergarten for a couple of the things, just the excitement that they have, how easy it is to entertain them. You do a silly voice in a read aloud, and they think that you're like a movie star. So that part has been really refreshing. 5th graders don't always enjoy that as much as the kindergartners. LaVille is different, number one, in its size. It's small enough that, the class sizes stay very manageable. It does have, it's big enough for the extra opportunities that you might not get elsewhere. From my experience, the schools that I have taught at, they have been, the students there have been lovely. I miss them. I loved them greatly. However, LaVille is the first school I've worked at where I actually felt heard. It's the first school I've taught at where I feel like I have a choice in how I run things, without certain types of curriculum saying, no, this is the curriculum, you can't deviate from it. I struggled in one school corporation. It was more of an inner city, and it took longer at the beginning of the year to get behaviors under control and to establish classroom management, which is really important to me, because if the class is moving and working the way that you need them to be, you can teach a lot more. So I would want to take more time to establish that, build relationships with my kids, and they didn't allow that. They said, no, you have to start curriculum on day 2. And I thought that's really hard to teach a group of whatever age. It doesn't matter what age they are. It's hard to take a group of 19 bodies, regardless of their age, and get them to understand this is how we function, this is how we treat each other, this is how we take care of the room in one day. It's just not possible. And so here, starting last year in such a weird COVID year, they allowed me that freedom to say, do what you need to do to get that classroom management down. The guidelines, the team effort, we have a curriculum map that we use, and everybody has a say, and it's laid out and it's there and we can use it. Other school corporations have, if they had it, it wasn't complete, or it changed every year, or just kind of a mess. And so this is one place where I feel like I have the freedom to be the educator that they hired me to be. I also feel it's very calm. I feel very calm here. Some other places that I worked at, there was just, and maybe due to size, there's just a lot going on. And I feel like sometimes students would get lost in the shuffle, teachers would get lost in the shuffle. So that's one thing that's different about LaVille that I'm really grateful for. In 17 years, I've seen some changes in education. I do like to tell, I'm not old, but I like to tell some of the new teachers coming in that when I started teaching, I was still using an overhead projector. And I would take my copies down and say, I need to make a transparency. And those little manipulatives that you'd put on the overhead projector for math, I mean, those were coveted items. You really wanted those. So technology has been a big change. I know for the 7 years I taught 4th, 5th grade, and so we had a computer lab in the building that the whole building would share. And when iPads came around, we had maybe 4 or 5 in the classroom. And really, it's interesting to see how I use the iPad today with my students and how I used it back then. And those first couple years, it was more of just like a trinket, and there wasn't a lot of educational value to it. Where today, I mean, with the program Seesaw, it's amazing what I can push out to the kids and have them immediately do it, and I can check and see, and I can even see like error patterns in their letters recognition, and it's amazing. So technology has been one thing that's been awesome. Plus, like with Google Docs, just to collaborate with colleagues, it's so much easier than what it used to be. I think another one that I'm not as positive about is standardized testing. And I know that you'll hear this from probably most all teachers, but there has been a huge emphasis on that. And I understand it's important, and I understand what its purpose should be. However, that's something that I feel strongly about, because I really feel like some other amazing opportunities and skills and vocational things in the higher levels are getting kind of pushed away because of standardized testing. So that's one of the things that has steadily, the pressure, the importance placed on that has grown every year. And whereas when I began, it just wasn't that big of an issue. The biggest reward so far, coming back to LaVille, is number one, the relationships I've been able to make with the students and their parents and the community. It has been beneficial to be from here, so there are some family names that I remember. But LaVille is drawing so many people from outside areas, and I found that in my classroom, over half are out-of-district students. So for me, this has been a really excellent opportunity to share LaVille. the people that are from around here know how great LaVille is, but this gave me an opportunity to bring these parents in, and they love it. The parents are saying to me, this is so great. We love this school. I had a student who transferred this year at Christmas time, and they just, they were very kind about their previous school, but they said, LaVille is just such a better fit for our son. And so sharing LaVille with other people has been so rewarding, because I am full of school spirit, and when I can get others to be that way too, that just makes me super happy. So right now, at this stage in my life, my own children, one is a first grader and one's a fifth grader. I kind of would like them to go through school without a lot of interference from me. So staying in kindergarten is a good choice for our family right now, but also coming off of being with fifth graders, just the change has been really nice, and being able to do more of the silly read alouds and the silly games that has been good. And I'm very passionate about beginning reading. I didn't realize this at the time. Indiana Wesleyan did a fabulous job of preparing me for that. And then I worked at Sylvan Learning Center up in Battle Creek, Michigan. And they put me with beginner readers, which I panicked, but they had a great curriculum, and they had a lot of manipulatives that I was able to use, and that kind of even helped me. And so beginning reading I'm very passionate about, and I've had a lot of success this year with my kiddos in that area. My mom and I like to butt heads a lot, but there's some wisdom, and Mom knows best. I'm thankful for the foresight that she had. I was excited to be out and doing things. I worked a lot of different jobs, but I kind of lacked the vision looking ahead, and I think she saw that. I think she saw the passion that I had for just reading. I had always been a reader, and just the leadership qualities that I had when leading younger kids at camp. So yeah, I would go back, if I could travel back in time and look at Mom, just way to go, thank you, because I wasn't making a very good choice, so you kind of helped me out there. LaVille is my home. LaVille is where I want to end my career. I started my education here, and then I had some twists and turns in the middle, and this is where I want it to end. This is what I want for my own personal children. I cannot wait to watch them walk across the stage in a blue gown and be a LaVille graduate. It's my home. And be it right or wrong, LaVille, I will defend LaVille. I want LaVille to be the best that it can be. It's already an amazing place. And I know that with the people that I'm meeting, the talent that we have, it can become even greater. And that's my ultimate goal.